Check this out. This is a really cool knife sheath. You gotta see how I made it. This was the kind that I made, and I took it to a course, and I saw Mors Kochanski, and he liked it, so I gave it to him. And I'd find out every now and then, periodically, he would wear it in one of his classes or two. And so he liked it. He said it reminded him of the old Mora knife sheath. So stick around and learn how to make one of these. Welcome to another episode of For You to Survive. Today we're going to talk about what happens if you lose your knife sheath. That could be a very dangerous situation. I'm going to show you how to make your own white pine bark sheath. Thank you to my subscribers and all you out there. So this is an improvised way that you can carry a knife in the woods, but it has to be done in the spring when bark will peel. This looks like a good place to get some white pine bark. I'm not going to go all the way around though. I'm going to take partial cut of bark. So I need it as long as my knife, so I'll give myself a little extra. So I'm going to cut down just enough to fold the bark over. There we go. I'll get the corner, work this out. There we go, slide it up. I have just enough bark to go around the knife so I can make a sheath out of it. I dug up some spruce roots here with a broken stick, and I got a decently long one here, and I got a second one here. So that's going to help bind the sheath together. That's going to be my stitching material. All right, we're going to pretend like this is a bowstring for a bow. I'll rip the little rootlets off there, but then we clean it up. That'll help get off the little outer bark part. So that helps loosen up the bark so we can have a nice clean root. And you'll see that up close a little bit later. I'm going to finish up here and we'll get going. Rubbing the cordage on a tree allows me to remove it quite nicely. And then now I have a nice clean root here. And that's going to be what I use to bind my sheath. Okay, I got the piece of bark. I cut it to the size that I thought would fit the knife blade nicely. And I gave a little extra just to make sure that the tip wouldn't come out. So I'm going to go with about that much. So now we got to start making some holes. So I know that when a knife is in, that's where I'm going to start. But I like to make the sharp edge close to the folded end, because I figure that if I make the end close to where the binding is, it might cut it out accidentally. So leave a comment if you agree or disagree with that idea. So anyway, I lined it up, and then now I know where I'm going to go. I'm going to start right about here. So I have to make a hole with a knife. And you can't be too rough on this. You start making a hole little by little. Make a hole on the other side. You got to be nice about this. Just kind of twisting it up. Twisting it up like this. Twisting it up like that on the other side. So now I have a hole. I want to thread it with a cord, so I'm going to make this a little angled so it's going to thread through a little bit better. There we go. So that'll go through. And again, I want the edge of the knife towards the folded part. Okay, I want to show you how we get this loop on the top of the knife, how we start the sheath. So we're going to go over that next. What I'll do is I'll take the awl and I'll go all the way through. I'll do it 3 times just to show you, because I want you to understand how it works. So I can take the thinner end, because that's going to work out better, put the thin end through, and I want to go about halfway. And then I'm going to put the other end through. We're going to follow that through the hole. So now we need to make it equal. So that's not quite equal yet. I want to leave enough loop up here so I can have a tie-off point, and we'll call that good. That's about equal length on the ends here. So now I'll use the awl to start the hole again. I'll put the one end through, and I'll put the other end through. Usually I start with the thin end first, and then that's how we get it going. And that keeps my loop on top. My knife would go in through here, and that's my start. But then again, I want you to see one last time. Let's see if this is clear. We'll go through one hole, well, it looks like I gotta start it again. And that's the nature of bark. So I start that hole again, I'll put one through, and then I'll put the other through the same hole, the thicker end preferably the second time. And there we go. So they cross inside. And that's a pretty good way to start the sheath. And that's how I started this sheath on top. So now we can continue on how to finish threading the rest of the root through the bark. Now, those of you who have a bone awl or a awl from a Swiss Army knife, you can use that to effectively make your holes. So this is an option. Might as well use the awl. That's kind of the original function of it. So that made a really nice hole there. But originally I was going as if I only had the one knife and that's all I had to use. But if you have other tools, why not use them? If you have an awl for the knife, you can do the classic over and unders. So I'm going to take this thinner end, I'll make the next hole, I'll make it here, I'm taking my time. Now that I've taken my time carefully, I can thread the thinner one in because the thicker one's going to be easier to thread. So now that I have this hole started, I'll go through. I'm going through, and then I put the thicker end through, which is a much easier process than putting a thin one in second. Okay. And then taking my time. There we go. So that makes a much neater look. And then the end of the blade is here, so I know I'm getting close to the end. So I'm going to go and probably try to curl down. Go for the thin end first again. Pulling it through. And then I'll put the thick end through. And the thick end I made a point on the end of it, so it's going to go through easier. Okay. So it's kind of two pieces of root in the same hole. And that's going well. Probably got one more here. Start with the thinner root first. I want to connect the holes. There we go. Get that to go through. And it didn't. So I'll just use the awl to get the hole lined up again. Now it should go through easier. So that's a little technique for when things get a little bit rough. And then I can finish threading things through. And again, the heavier one, the thicker one goes through. Much easier. And there we go. Sure, I've done times where I've used a knife itself to make the holes, but that's not as effective. And you got to take your time. You can't be in a hurry with this because bark will rip. And if you're going to do it, you might as well make a nice looking sheath. Yes, you want it functional, but you might as well make it nice looking too. You want to feel good about your work. Okay. Let's carry on here. And then we assess where we are. And we're just going to work our way over. I'm going to finish this up. It's nice to work on a log because the log can stop the awl from digging into your finger. But you should always go slow anyway because, well, we're working with delicate materials that are strong and effective, but speed will help you make mistakes. And we don't need help making mistakes. We're too good at it already. Yep, sure enough, success. And I'll keep things neat and tight. Next hole is coming right about here. That worked out well. Now to put the thick end through. Alright. Yeah, the thin one's going to be more flexible, so I'll tie that one. So I'm going to go left over right. And right over left. We'll finish this up. Sometimes I like to have a little knot on the end. I'll do an overhand knot. Because the overhand knot's going to allow me to take the knife out of its sheath easier. There we go. It's your choice how to finish it off. And then at the bottom here, I can cut off the excess. I'm trying to make it look like a sheath. Leaving enough on there so the bark can hold. That looks pretty good. Cut off the excess there. And again, the blade goes towards the bark. I don't want it to go towards the root because I have this idea that it might cut it by mistake. So I think that there's more security that way, so the blade is facing this edge. It kind of goes against standard ways. I didn't add a welt or anything, you know, a third piece in here. But for an improvised sheath, I think this is really good. Now I should show you how it functions. You take your lanyard, you put one end through the loop of the root, and I usually take the knotted side and I bring that through. So now I have a way of carrying my knife. Hands free, much safer, because a knife without its sheath is very, very dangerous. Here's a nice feature. I left a knot on the end, so now I can hold the knot and then I can remove the knife easier. Sure, I could always hold the sheath and pull it out, but I'd feel safer if I have the knotted end on the bottom here and I pull out and then I have my knife ready to use. A knife is a real important tool for the outdoors, so we should at least know how to carry it and what to do if for some reason we lose our sheath, which shouldn't happen, especially if it's attached to a belt or attached to a lanyard on your neck. But things happen, so you should at least have some options. Thank you for watching.